Are you wondering which enclosure is best to house your terrestrial tarantulas in? Are there just some particular ones you've not tried and want to know a bit more about before hitting that buy button? We go through my personal top 5 favourite enclosures that I've used, and stick around to the end of the video to see what my personal alternative to the traditional #1 enclosure in the hobby is. Ooh, controversial. Roll titles! Hello, 'tis I, Matt, and welcome back to the Arachnophiles. And our first top 5, well, kind of top 6, because I'm giving you an alternative #1, but sod it, who's counting? I am. And you are. We're all counting. So, without further ado, let's get into the top 5 best terrestrial tarantula enclosures, in my opinion. Number 5 is the good old bog standard plastic critter keeper. It'll do. Good things about these is they're nice and cheap. They're very lightweight. Many of them are stackable depending on which brand you get. A lot of brands make this exact type of enclosure. This one here is the most common type that we get in pet shops around the UK. They can be picked up anywhere depending on size for between £5 and £25. This is one of the larger ones. I think I grabbed this one for just under £17, £16.99 from a local aquatic shop. That's pretty much the price bracket for these nice cheaper enclosures. Bad points about these ones are, with the plastic ones you do have to be a bit more careful when you're cleaning them because they're prone to scratching if you use the wrong kind of cloth or sponge. With the glass ones you can be a lot more vigorous, so they're a lot easier to completely clean out in between animals or in between rehouses. They also have overly flexible lids in my opinion. When you're trying to open that top hatch, it's hard to do that without bending the whole top. It doesn't feel very strong, which doesn't instill confidence, especially in a first time keeper. Also, one thing that's always bugged me, they tend to have a bit of an amber tint to the plastic, which is much like viewing your tarantula through a 1985 ashtray from McDonald's. Yum. Next up, at number 4 on my top 5 list of enclosures for terrestrial tarantulas, is the Spiderling Pots. These can be found on the spidershop.co.uk. I've also found them widely available in many exotic shops and aquarium shops. They come in many different sizes. The ones I'm showing you here, the ones I use, are the slightly deeper ones, which are great for fossorial or just burrowing terrestrial tarantulas when they're at spiderling or very small juvenile stage. You can also use them for arboreals, as I've done with our Carabena versicola, which you saw in the rehouse video I posted the other day, and that was just flipped on its end, and that little hatch there acts perfectly as a front opening door, which is what I prefer with all my arboreal enclosures. As you can probably guess from the size and the material, they are incredibly affordable. You can also get these on good bulk deals. The Spider Shop sell them for £1.50 individually, and I think you can buy them in bulk orders of 5, 10, 20 and so on, and they get cheaper with the greater amount you buy. So, little tip to save on your money if you've got a large collection. They're also tapered in at the bottom, so they are stackable as well. Again, another good point if you've got a lot of tarantulas. One of the little cons of these, not that there's any others, is that they're not the most see-through in the world, given the type of material it is. It's kind of cloudy plastic. If you display them like I do and you have some lighting above them, it actually becomes quite a nice effect. And the spider inside is perfectly visible when they're lit from above. And because of the soft plastic, it doesn't let too much light through, so they don't really notice as long as the light above is not too bright, of course. Number 3 in our top 5 are the NeoRep Acrylic Enclosures. These are really nice. We have a couple of Grammies in them, a Grammostola Inherenge and a Grammostola Acteon. I do wish these smaller terrestrial setups they do also came in slightly deeper versions without necessarily shooting up straight to their full adult size homes, which are a bit of a jump up in price. A few more options in size, particularly depth, height in this range would be great before going up to the bigger cube and arboreal style homes that they do. These are very aesthetically pleasing, a nice sort of subtle NeoRep logo on the front, doesn't detract too much from the overall appearance. Lots of ventilation on the sides and on the top. Again, these are very handy if you've got a large number of tarantulas that you still wish to display because you can stack them. Number 2 on the list is one of my personal favourites, highly recommended at the Arachnophiles, Custom Aquaria. You'll see some footage now of my big LP Girl Rushdie's enclosure. This is one of their 50 by 30 by 30 tanks. It's very deep, so plenty of substrate options. You can have a gradient. You can completely top it up if you just want a large display. Maybe you've got a burrower that still comes out once in a while. I know my H. Gigas comes out quite a lot considering she's completely fossorial. It's just a great way of displaying your spider because it's a completely clear aquarium. It does have full ventilation on the back in the form of a mesh strip going right along the whole backside. Some may consider the heavier glass aquarium style top lids to be a hindrance. I personally don't have any issues with them. Sometimes they can be a bit loud if you're a bit clumsy and you scrape the glass together. One of the double lid ones, the larger ones are 2 lid pieces. Rusty doesn't like that, she tends to scat out a bit, but what you're going to do, sometimes I breathe out and it happens then too. So I use these for my huge species such as adult Goliaths, don't have any yet but will soon, and of course my Lasiodora parahabana adult female Rusty, who's a good 8.5 inches, probably more, will definitely break 9 inches on her next molt. This houses her fine, as you can see. Not only that, but it fits my generic shelves from insert DIY store here perfectly. It's 50 centimeters and it fits in there absolutely flush. And for the size, they're not massively heavy. They're very well put together, nice amount of silicone inside. I'm not going to be worrying about any leaks. They're very, very reasonable priced considering the personal craftsmanship touch you do get. It's a very small company. I think it's just one guy and a lady who run that company together. They're very nice people. You can catch them at the Inverts UK shows and I think at the BTS shows as well. I picked up Rusty's big tank for £40 and of course no shipping at the shows, so this is the best place to get good deals from vendors like this. And the smaller custom Aquaria tanks, much like you would have seen me using to rehouse Salem, our Grammostola pulchra a couple of weeks back, can be picked up at those shows for a nice £20. They also make to order. You can get in touch with them on their website, but as they state on there themselves, it's probably best to call them. So give them a call. I'll put the link and the number down below in the description. And the number one, which I will be giving you an alternative for, it's undeniable. I've had them, you've had them. If you've not bought one yet, you're probably thinking about buying one because they're very popular and they are very high quality. It is, of course, the Terra 30 by 30 by 30 centimeter cube. These are very aesthetically pleasing. They're full glass. It's very thin, very clear glass. They're very well put together. They come in all kinds of sizes and they are incredibly widely available, of course, because they are so popular and such a well-known brand. However, even the best have some cons, and these are the ones that I've noticed in my experience of using them that make it not my official #1 enclosure for terrestrial tarantulas in the hobby. Going against the grain here at the Arachnophiles. First off, lovely glass, but split glass front doors. I'm personally not a big fan of having some sort of interruption in the view through the front of my enclosures for my display tarantulas, especially when I forked out quite a big ticket price to get myself something I could display my spider in to the absolute maximum quality. So I'm going to be slightly disappointed if once I display my spider in there, there's actually a line interrupting my view. Maybe it's just a personal gripe, but I much prefer anything with a clear, completely see-through, no splits or hinges or cracks, glass front. The next thing, and probably the most contentious that even the biggest of Exoterra fans would agree with, screen mesh tops. Now, I don't mind certain types of screen mesh top, but the ones you get on these Exoterras are the very, very fine, incredibly wiry, easy to catch a tarantula claw on. It can be an issue, and tarantulas can, and I've had a couple do it, get their toes caught and start fighting and end up getting more caught up and possibly even drop a leg. It's happened to some, never to me, but I have had a few spiders up there that made me feel a bit nervous. So it's definitely something to watch out for. Although there are alternative pre-made lids to solve this problem being sold online, I will find out the details, and if I find the link to that product, I will pop that down in the description too. As I alluded to previously, they are also very expensive, unfortunately. Although you can say you pay for what you get, I want quality, so I'm happy to pay the higher ticket price, which is fair enough. Personally, that feels like a trade-off to me rather than a benefit of having paid a greater price, at least when it comes to housing tarantulas. Also, these cubes are the full 30 centimeters in height, which my terrestrial tarantulas simply don't always need. I use lower profile alternatives to a similar ground space, so still 30 by 30 centimeters, but just without all that extra wasted height, and it saves me using excess substrate just to cancel that out. Also, going back to the split glass doors, just below those split glass doors is a ventilation strip, which combined with the doors limits the height of your substrate at the front of the enclosure. So if you have any species that's likely to opportunistically burrow, it can be annoying because you have to graduate that up from the front, and there's no other option. It has to happen from the front, which limits the way you might want to landscape your naturalistic terrariums, which is the sort of terrariums I like to build. So for me, it's definitely a con. It can be tricky to replace those lids on these because you need a full conversion to completely remove the mesh from the existing lid and then replace it with Perspex or acrylic or whichever material it is you're using. So although they are amazing quality and they are very much worth the money because they are very well made, I just personally haven't found them to be the absolute best enclosures I could keep my terrestrial tarantula species in. And therefore, I have an alternative. Because of course I do. And that alternative is the Komodo 30 by 30 by 20 centimeter cube. I really love these enclosures and I plan on keeping all of my adult terrestrials in them, apart from the extremely large spiders such as the LP female Rusty, who, as we said before, is in one of the lovely custom Aquaria tanks, and any Theraphosa species that might be 10 inches or greater. But every other genus and species of terrestrial stroke opportunistic burrowers, so your Nandus, your Aphanopelmas, your Brachypelmas, your Tiltacatls, anything that's around the 5 to 7 inch size fully grown, the perfect fit for these enclosures. The first pro is going to go along with one possible con, but it's the only con I've found with them at all, and that's bloody good going. They come with a pressed mesh steel lid that slides in. None of that wiry mesh, no issues with tarantulas getting their feet caught. I've had many spiders, big bodies, walk all the way from front to back along the bottom of these lids. No issues. I've never seen any of them have trouble getting down. And if you don't give them the height to fall, it's not a risk anyway. And if you did want to replace the lids on these, it's a lot easier done than on the Exoterras. You don't have to buy a brand new pre-made aftermarket lid to replace it with entirely. You can just get the right size piece of material, and because of the way these lids just slot in before you clasp them down, you can just get an alternative sheet and pop that in, be it acrylic, perspex, whatever you fancy going with. So if you did want to make any customizations or alterations, it's a lot more simple to do that with these. They're, needless to say, much cheaper than the Exoterras, which is one big reason why I go for these over those. Yes, you can pick up Exoterras second hand, but quite often they've been bashed about a bit. Even the good ones have got a couple of nicks on the plastic, or holes in the mesh top, or some damage to the doors, especially the real bargains. They're much cleaner looking. There's no doors, there's no splits, there's no black borders of plastic or ventilation on the front. They're completely clear and viewable from all 4 angles. So if you wanted to display a tarantula centrally, maybe you've got a coffee table you want to pop one on, then you can set it up in a way where it looks good from every angle. There's no ventilation at the back, so that always has to be the back. You're not limited to that. So it gives you more options in regards to displaying your display terrestrial tarantulas, which is the point we're going for here. The only other con I could think of was related to the mesh lid. Possibly too much ventilation. That's only really relevant or a problem for those trying to achieve very high humidity. But a large enough water dish and or a good amount of decent substrate that holds humidity well will counteract this, in my opinion. Again, with the substrate depth, 20 centimeters is more than enough. You can fill these right up to the top. If you set them up like I do and place the hide in the corner, like this guys, and then bury that hide, it uses all of the floor space plus what's on top of the hide, because you completely submerge that with more substrate on top. So you lose the height, but you gain an extra 50% floor space. That's free real estate. Aside from a couple of very minor points, which I don't really consider to be cons at all, because they're either easy to get around or simply don't matter to my purposes, that's what makes them my #1 alternative to the traditional #1 of the Exoterra when it comes to the best terrestrial tarantula enclosures. So there we are, our first top 5, my first top 5. So many firsts here at the Arachnophiles lately. If you enjoyed this video and want to see more of this type of content, please do let me know down in the comments, and please do be sure to give the video a like. And if you're not subscribed, please do. 84% of my views were from unsubscribed people. That's now down to 71%. So if we could get that down to 50% in the new year, I'd be a very happy boy. Right, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on the Arachnophiles. Bye bye.